My name is Ashish Bhatia. I'm product manager in the AI Builder team. We're part of the overall Power Platform team, and we're building Lowcode AI capabilities for Power Apps, Power Automate, and other Power tools. Let's quickly do a cap on agenda. We'll talk about what AI Builder is. This is a L100 kind of session, so we're introducing what AI Builder is and just going through various scenarios and case studies and new upcoming features and things like that. We'll also talk about some of the intelligent document processing capabilities, and we'll do a few demos at the end as well. So software development is being accelerated by low-code. There is a Gartner study which says 70% of new enterprise applications will be built through low-code, no-code by 2025. Natural language capabilities, computer vision capabilities, they are accelerating how people are embedding AI in their application. And AI Builder is one of the tools which is pioneering the democratization of AI for citizen developers. So that's something that we're kind of trying to focus on, and that's the target audience that we're trying to address, right? How do we bring more citizen developers to incorporate AI into their applications and flows? We just try to unpeel this kind of number of 70% application development through no code. You'll see around your own work environment, there are a lot of things that we do manually today, and there is an appetite from just enterprise citizen developers, just tinkerers, right, who want to optimize their time, who want to automate their workflows, and then our platform kind of just fits right into that sweet spot where it enables people who are trying to optimize their day-to-day work, who are trying to automate a workflow, to be able to do those with kind of almost no code development. You'll see, we'll talk about it. There are expressions that you can use, very Excel-like expressions that you can use in your apps and flows at times, when most of that experience is just drag and drop and click and play kind of experience, using which people can develop some very kind of sophisticated apps and capabilities. So with that, let's take a look at how AI is being kind of, the value is being realized, right? We see a lot of AI is being pulled into automated decision-making or improved decision-making or assisted decision-making. Right? We see 40% kind of value there. We also see a lot of productivity gain through automation, your workflow, your business processes. People are trying to automate that as much as possible and remove human intervention, or go to an assistive mode as much as possible, that the machine, the agents are helping humans make better decisions through their capabilities. And then a lot of AI is being employed in customer interaction, customer service, and innovating around products. So a quick look at Power Platform. Power Platform is a set of capabilities, right? You will see, again, people might be very familiar with Power BI, which is a business analytics tool. There is also Power Apps, which is the application development for low-code, no-code. We recently launched Power Pages, which is website development, again, using low-code, no-code. Power Automate is workflow automation. If you have a specific workflow business process that you want to automate, then again, Power Automate is the tool. And Power Agent, lastly, is kind of the virtual agent, the chatbots of the world, right? If you want to build stuff like that, again, in low-code, no-code paradigm, that Power Virtual Agents is the tool. Powering all of this Power tools are kind of some horizontal capabilities. So Dataverse is the data management layer. Power FX is low-code programming. I talked about this expressions-based programming, right? Almost like Excel expressions functions. That's Power FX. And then AI Builder fits in as the no-code AI capability, which kind of infuses AI into everything else that's above in that chart. I'll drop a link for everybody to try this. It's called aks.try AI Builder. you can hit that to go to AI Builder and kind of explore that. Right. So our vision with AI Builder is that we, again, want to democratize AI for everybody. And again, not a cliche, but that's the mission of the team, right? How do we make it easy for people to understand AI and then embrace AI and embed AI in their workflows and applications? Also, the audience that we are talking to, a lot of times they don't understand what AI they need, right? So sometimes your documents, your orders are coming in a different language and you want translated in English. A lot of times people don't come in with that mindset that I need a translation capability. They just want these orders which are coming in a different language to be available in English, right? So we're trying to make it easy for them to kind of rationalize and understand that this capability is available without having AI on the face as much as possible, right? So that's kind of the intent. Again, just core tenets of AI Builder: empower makers with use of AI, get features faster to market. So we have a very quick experimentation paradigm, and we'll talk a little bit about that. AI Builder is also a collection of two kind of AI models, right? There are pre-built AI models which are ready to go. You just click and you see the result, right? So there's no training involved, it's ready to go. You'll also see customizable models, right? Where you can bring your own data and customize it. Lastly, we want to give control back to admins as much as possible so that they can then govern what AI goes into production, what can people experiment with, and things like that. Again, briefly touching upon the same points, you'll see a lot of out-of-the-box AI models, which we'll talk about, which are in the category of text, document, image detection, and things like that. And then there are customizable models where you can bring your own data, your own business-specific data, and with low-code kind of kick off training jobs to get, again, a model which is more fine-tuned towards your own business data or your business context, right? And then you can stitch up end-to-end AI orchestration using some of the workflows that we have set up. These are data validation, feedback loops, and things like that. And lastly, control back to the admins to be able to then govern who uses the model, what models are being used, and what gets deployed in production. We get this question a lot, right? Where people ask, where does AI Builder falls into the Microsoft AI stack? So again, this is a kind of clear depiction of how we see Microsoft AI stack. And you see at the bottom, there is Microsoft ML platform, which is the platform of choice for pro developers or pro data scientists, actually. They're building custom AI models. They're infusing custom models in their own applications. They have full control over the model design, the architecture, fine tuning of it, and training, compute layers, and things like that. On top of that is a layer which is called cognitive services or Azure AI services at times. Now, this is more for pro developers. Also, data scientists use this and find it amenable. But this is also a collection of pre-trained models, also customizable models, right? So out of box, you get state-of-the-art models, but this layer is still going to involve a lot of coding, right? So that's why we say this is a layer which still resonates with pro developers because they are still working with code on this, right, layer. And the layer then on top of that is the layer which is prime for citizen makers. You will see, again, higher order kind of sonification of AI in form of document processing, invoice processing, sentiment analysis, and things like that. The paradigm is similar, right? You'll still see pre-trained models which are ready to go. You'll also have concepts of fine-tuning of model, but in a low-code, no-code form factor. And then again, topping it up with AI governance, fast time to market, and things like that. You'll also see the underlying layers are also feeding into the top layer. So AI Builder as is, our ambition is to bring all of AI goodness that exists within Microsoft in for low-code, no-code developers as well. The idea is to have long-term parity across these layers so that if you're a local developer, you're not at a disadvantage of any sort, right? You still have access to the same state-of-the-art models that you would otherwise have in a pro development layer or a pro data scientist layer, right? But as a no-code developers, you can now use them in your flows and applications and pages and things like that. So that's the intent. Taking a look quickly at the AI capabilities, I mentioned we kind of segment them into 4 categories: documents, text, images, and structured data. So you'll see a lot of document processing capability. We'll talk deeply about them. Similarly, you'll see a lot of text analytics and text processing capabilities. And then images and structured data, of course. You can bring your own model. So if you're a local developer or citizen developer, but you're also you have access to a data science team within the enterprise, then you can work with them to bring, again, from pro data science developed model, and you can interact with them in AI Builder as well, and then leverage them in Power Apps or Power Automate. Right? So that's possible as well, that you can work with multidisciplinary teams, right, where citizen developers are working with pro data scientists. Maybe some of them are loners. They can come and develop models for you, and then you can interact with those models and use them in your applications and flow. Let's take a quick look at some of the use cases that we are addressing, right? So again, the same pattern, you'll see a lot of document scenarios on the top. And then the greens represent some of the text scenarios, and image scenarios are pink, and then yellows are some of the prediction scenarios based on structured data. So you'll see things like extracting data from invoices. We'll actually do a demo around it. Claim processing, extracting key information from contacts, translating documents, translating support requests, things like that. Ability to identify and classify images and objects, product placement on shelf, and then forecasting and decision making through some structured data. There is a huge palette of capabilities that is available for low-code development. We're constantly adding more to it. Let's deep dive into some of the scenarios, and I'm going to do a demo on invoice processing. So invoice processing, a lot of companies are trying to just automate that process as invoices come in. How do we kind of take the most critical pieces of information out of it, and then pick those pieces and put them elsewhere if they want to, right? So in AI Builder, you'll see there is a pre-trained model around invoice processing. You also have the ability to modify that model. You can also bring invoices from different vendors and kind of train the model to deal with all the variability that you get with different vendors. That's also possible. So that's something that can be done. Okay. So we still call this as a structured document, right? There is some structure to the document. So again, that's how we kind of classify this capability. Then comes, for example, another use case around digital contract processing, right? This is more of on the unstructured side, right? The document doesn't have a predefined structure or a very well-defined structure, right? And the information that you're looking for can exist in different places within the document, right? So again, with unstructured data or unstructured document, you can fine-tune and build models within the AI Builder and extract key pieces of information that you're looking for. We then have, and this is again a scenario that we'll do a demo on later, is identity proofing or processing identity documents. So you're working in a department where you need to validate people's identity, or that's something, or you could think of a scenario where you're trying to do a know your own customer kind of scenario where you're trying to identify and validate their identity. Then identity solution, this is a predefined model, so that can come in handy. We recognize license, passcodes, social security cards, and a bunch of other kind of identity modes of identity, and you can easily build something around it. Case routing is an example where you get requests through emails or other modalities, and based on the content of that request or an email, you want to then route it to different places for different kind of processing. So maybe you have an email box where you're getting orders and complaints and returns all at the same time. Then based on the content, you can create different workflow. So first you want to classify all the emails or orders that are coming in. And then you want to say, hey, orders go through a different workflow, returns go through a different workflow, complaints go through a different workflow. So you can set up things like that. Then again, another use case that we've seen a lot is kind of product counting items on shelf. So using the object detection model, that's not a pre-trained model, so you'll have to train it. So you'll have to tell it what objects you're looking for. But again, you'll see the experience is draggy droppy, so you can bring a bunch of images and then say, hey, here are the products that I want to call out or identify. And then you can quickly build object detection or product counting or stock on shelf kind of scenarios with the model. Let's take a look at some of the customer case studies that we have seen in the recent times. One of the customers that we have seen, and again, they've been on stage with us, is Komatsu Australia. Right? They built a Power Automate workflow, and they were able to minimize or they were able to cut down almost 300 hours annually on invoice processing. And then this was built in a very, very short amount of time by Eric Chang mentioned over there as well. So a manual process that existed earlier, and they were able to, within several weeks, I would say, build out an end-to-end invoice processing solution, purely no code, low code, on top of our platform to kind of start processing their invoices. Clarion is another example. They did automated extraction of housing certificates, right? So this is, again, you'll see there is a structure to the document that they have, and they were able to identify and pick the elements of information in these documents and then create a workflow around it and then populate their Dynamics 365 finance entries using the workflow. MasterSpin, they were using some of these, again, structured documents to classify and extract custom entities from customer declaration forms. And they, again, once they set up this automation in practice, more than 90,000 pages are automated per month using this capability. So one of the key scenarios that we're doubling down on is just document processing, intelligent document processing, or IDP as we kind of refer to it. And you'll see a bunch of capabilities that are coming together to kind of create that scenario. So traditionally what we've been doing, or what people have been doing is we OCR a document, right? Which is to extract all the visible text within a document. So that's interesting, but it can get you only so much. You lose the structure of the document a little bit. You lose the context of where pieces of information were. Right. So with more advances in AI, and again, just re-embracing a lot of underlying cognitive service capabilities like form recognition and the deep learning models in form recognition, we're able to preserve the context of information within the document. So we're able to, for example, in case of an invoice, we are able to identify that a given date is an invoice date, or was it the order processing date, or things like that, right? We're able to identify tables better, right? And again, even differentiate between columns and rows and say which one is a total, which one is a quantity. And then we are also able to identify yes/no kind of checkboxes if it's a form where people are filling yes/no answers or checkboxes, and so we are able to preserve the structure of the document and extract the information, then populate it appropriately in a database, in a table, or wherever you want to capture that information once you automate that workflow or document processing workflow. So two capabilities within Power Platform are coming together to form this kind of this capability, this couple, right? AI Builder, which kind of brings in all the AI capabilities, and then Power Automate, which brings the power of automating a workflow. Power Automate also again supports 800 plus connectors, so wherever your data can possibly live, there might be a connector to kind of pull that data in, or then drop the resultant information that is extracted through the AI model if you want to drop it in a certain place. So you can do that based on those connectors. So that is a great set of capability. So intelligent document processing in Power Platform. Let's take kind of deeper look at it, right? So we recently GA'd a bunch of other capabilities in what kind of documents we can process, right? So for example, we added unstructured document to it, but structured forms, invoices, receipts, ID cards, and business cards are already there. Obviously, OCR was right at the beginning. We recently added unstructured data unstructured document processing to it as well. We can deal with different languages, sentiments, be able to categorize and classify pieces of information and then extract them as is. And so that's there. You can then also build kind of custom models. We talked about that a little bit, right? So identify table, multi-page table and things like that, or checkboxes, right? So in a given form, that information might look or exist in different form factors, but you should be able to extract them. Then there is support for a bunch of file formats like PDFs, TIFFs, images, and things like that. And finally, with the connectors, you can export the data to, again, various syncs that might be possible or are there or being used at your enterprises. Yeah, so let's go and look at some of the scenarios. So text recognition, again, pre-trained model where you can extract keywords or pieces of information from a document, even images, right? This primarily employs OCRing technique, right? So if you're, let's say, processing some images and trying to extract information, again, this capability can come in handy. And again, you don't have to do any training here. Right, so various kind of formats are supported, and then 80 plus languages also supported. So you're processing shipping labels or product labels or things like that, then you can extract stuff like that with text processing capability. We talked about identity documents a little bit, right? So wherever you're trying to verify identity, you can leverage this model. Again, various image formats are supported, PNG, JPEG, and even PDF. And then you can extract various outputs like name of the person, last name, date of birth, street name, and so on and so forth. Invoice processing is, again, something that we'll take a deeper look at during demo as well. It supports invoices which are in size of 20 MB, but again, coming in JPEG, PDF, and PNG format. Again, the typical scenario is you're automating your account billing processes or payment processes and things like that, and that's something that you can leverage. Receipt processing is something that we've seen people use in expense reporting. Again, very similar model, predefined model. You don't have to fine tune anything most of the time. But of course, there's possibility if you want to kind of customize it to a specific kind of receipts that you're receiving. But this, again, is a capability that can get you started very quickly just based on the pre-trained models. Let me jump through some of this and talk about some of the features so that we can dive into some demos as well. Yeah, so one of the new capabilities that we released recently is, again, on the invoice processing side, one of the consistent demand was to add new languages, right? So we started supporting, in addition to English, French, Dutch, German, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish. A very, very consistent ask from our customers on supporting new languages. We started supporting unstructured document. So documents like contracts and things like that, where there's not a definitive structure to it. That is now available. Again, this is a model that you can fine tune with your own documents or business context that you want to bring along, right? So that's possible. One of the other consistent asks was multi-page table and multi-line tagging, right? When you're processing unstructured document, for example, a rental agreement in this case, and the address is spanning multiple lines, right? So it was difficult to kind of tag them earlier, but with this drag drop interface now, you can kind of drag and tag the entire multi-line piece of information. Or if you have tables which are spanning multiple pages, then again, that's something that you can now easily tag, which is again earlier missing and was a consistent ask. One of the other things that people have been asking is, as this is going beyond just experimentation and people tinkering with it to more serious usage, as makers start to build models, they want to share models, they want to co-develop the models or have co-authors on the models, right? This is also an ask from admins who want kind of more authority on the models and want to have more than one person either developing the models or maintaining the models, so that if the person is not around anymore, the other owner can take care of them, right? They continues to stay alive and fresh along the life cycle. And then just last thing on document processing is we've added feedback loop. So feedback loop is a concept where if you're doing document processing, and again, you've set up your model and you have it as part of a workflow, your data drifts, your formats change sometimes, or new vendors come along, right? And you see some of your invoices are not being processed, right? So you can easily set up a feedback loop where there is intelligence built into the workflow, where it can flag, or you can set up the rules where you can flag documents which are below a certain confidence to say, hey, I want human inspection on this if the confidence is below a certain score, right? And then human validators can validate and say whether the information was rightly classified or identified, or if they want to retrain the model with the data that had low confidence or new data that the model has never seen, right? So thus you can kind of set up some checks and balances on your models, so such that when your data drifts or your model is starting to decay, you can kind of refresh it with new data and kind of refresh the model. And then lastly, something for kind of admins and people who want to have oversight. There is model monitoring, and then there is Center of Excellence kind of starter kit, where again, admins and people who want to have oversight can monitor models which are used across environments, track model makers, where are these specific models used, which flows, which apps. So they have more oversight on where is the AI being used at an enterprise level. Lastly, I want to talk about licensing. One of the very commonly or most kind of complaint items that we have been hearing from customers and partners and various forums is the licensing cost. That AI Builder was expensive and licensing was opaque or inflexible. People didn't understand too much on how we were charging them, or we were representing the numbers in credits, and it was hard to translate into dollar numbers and things like that. And so that's something that we have been consistently hearing. That's something that is about to change. We are releasing a new licensing model, or we are updating our licensing model. We're trying to come at parity with cognitive services as much as possible. We're taking a tiered approach, much like Azure AI and cognitive services. So again, they're multi-tier. If you're using a tier 1, which is $500 one pack, for example, you'll see a slight premium on AI Builder, which is about 20%. Again, there's a lot of engineering around low-code, no-code development and governance and things like that. So that's kind of 20% premium on what you would otherwise see at a cognitive service or Azure AI level. But then if you're consuming more, right, like 10 packs, for example, then you will see that number getting reduced by 10%. And then, but if you're consuming even more, like 50 packs, then you will see almost exact parity at the cognitive service or Azure AI level. Our intent is to make sure that people don't have to make choices on which kind of layer in the stack they want to use AI based on pricing, but rather it should be based on, again, your level of comfort, your use case, your scenario, and where your skills and expertise lie. So you should be able to use Microsoft AI at any of those 3 layers that we talked about, irrespective of kind of that cost differentiation. We're trying to bring that cost parity at all levels, right? So that's clearly the intent. I want to pause and see if people have questions. Otherwise, I'll skip and do some demos of how to use the product, how does the product look like, and things like that. So Dipti, if you can call out some questions that I can answer, I can then jump into the demo. And then we can do a QA after the demo as well.
Hi, Ashish. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We do have some questions. And the questions are starting with, the first question came from, give me some time. Yeah. So from Jason, do the pre-trained model include computer vision, NLP, and other types of models?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pre-trained category includes models around document processing, around text processing. For most of the image models and structured data, you have to fine-tune the model a little bit. I know we are working on an image model, which is around image description, which is in preview, which is pre-trained, but then object detection is fine-tunable or customizable. Because that model is not a generic object classifier. You would have to bring in your images to classify that various images that you are trying to or detect images, right? So that's that. On the unstructured data, again, if you're trying to forecast something, you want to bring your own data to kind of then again train the model on what you want to forecast. So it makes sense to do a custom model there. But most of the document processing and text models are kind of pre-trained. Next question.
Thanks, Ashish. Yeah, the next question is from DP Sidon Spinner. I want to develop a PWA for digital health. What resources do you recommend?
Okay, I'm assuming with PWA you mean Power Automate. And again, feel free to correct in the chat if you're trying to develop an app, for example, with Power Apps otherwise. It depends, right? Tell us a little bit more about your digital health scenario, so I can kind of give you the best recommendation. If it is processing of health documents, again, some of the document management or document processing capabilities can come in handy. If you're trying to extract information from some emails or other things, then text processing capabilities will come in handy. So tell us a little bit more about your digital health initiative, and then maybe I can provide more guidance on that.
Sure, thanks, Ashish. So DP Sidon Spinner, if you have the follow-up questions, please feel free to write them, and Ashish will be able to answer that. I'm going to move to the next question then. How does AI Builder handle retrieving consistent form fields among many documents with each having different formats?
Right, so
this is from Nico.
Yeah, thanks, Nico. When we look at and I can actually walk you through. When you're looking at document processing, there is a concept called collections in document processing. So, for example, if it's invoices, right, and your invoices are coming from multiple vendors, sometimes you're dealing with hundreds of vendors, right? You can create, you can set up different collections for each vendor, and what would you need is probably 5 examples per vendor to teach the model that, hey, understand these different formats that are coming from the vendor, and thus the model will be able to then train on that data and can extract information from all those invoices. So there is possibility to set up collections when you're training the model, right? I'll show you in my demo.
Okay, thanks, Ashish. There's another question from Jason Kramer. Can you predefine your own formats of data? For example, I have a unique form, but I want to get data from specific parts of the form, but it is not a widely used or known format.
Okay, I'm not clear on what data format. What do you mean by data format? So Jason, if you can clarify in the chat, what do you mean by that? One of the things that we are working on right now, it's coming later, is understanding type of the field, right? Is it a Boolean field? Is it string? Is it numeric, right? A lot of people are saying, or a lot of customers have been asking for type identification of field. Right now, all of that is treated as text, right? So that's something that we are working on. We'll shortly add up. But help me understand what format what do you mean by format, unique format or own format, and again, we can have that conversation. Thanks, Jason.
Again, thanks, Ashish, for answering that question. We have another question from Geoffrey Hansen. Please define capacity.
Okay. I'm guessing you mean capacity packs for the licenses, right? So, and I'm not top of my head, but I feel the $500 capacity pack gives you 1 million credits, and then we have a rate chart for all the AI models. So if you go to AI Builder rate card, you will see that different models have a different burn rate. And those burn rates are defined in credits. So if, for example, $500 gives you 1 million credits, you can then figure out if you're using a specific model, right, what is the burn rate in terms of credit, and you can then understand how much packs you would need, right, or how much add-ons of AI Builder you would need for a given use case based on your forecast of how many calls you will be making. So that's possible. So let me take a pause from questions, go
Okay,
to
sure.
some
We'll
demos, and we'll
back
come back and answer some questions, right?
Of course, yeah.
Perfect. So let's go over and build a few demos that kind of touch on the themes of things that we were talking about. So for example, in this scenario, I mean, this is for, the idea is you want to validate identity of people who are asking for flight changes, for example, right? For whatever reason you might want to do that. But again, let's say people are putting in flight changes and we want to make sure that this is a known customer or somebody who already has a booking with us and want to validate their identity. You can imagine this as a know your own customer scenario or things like that. The idea behind it is, for example, if I am looking for, let's say, a flight change, I put in my current flight, and then I identify a new flight that I want to take. And what the system is saying is, can you upload your picture so we can match your identity and make the change. If you were doing this otherwise, you have somebody in the call center setting and kind of getting all that validation done for you. But if you're trying to automate that workflow, for example, then you can have an app experience or a page experience, web page experience, where you can ask people to submit their changes with their identity, and you can validate their identity automatically if you already have their identity parameters in your database, right? So we'll submit one request, we'll make another request after that, just to see some variability. So that was one request, and if I make another one here, select a different ID type. So we selected passport earlier. Let's select a driver's license here, right? And submit the change. This is a very simple app which collects, again, current flight, available flights. We have pre-canned these lists, but you can imagine it is coming from some database of some sort. But the most important thing is we're collecting their images and thus collecting the request. And you can imagine an automated approval experience, right, where these requests are coming in, and wherever the identity finds a match in your system, that gets automatically approved by a workflow, right? So, for example, in this scenario, the first identity had a match in our system, and we automatically approve their request, right? But the second one can then go to manual inspection. So again, think of this as an assisted scenario for some human agent or inspector who's sitting and looking at these incoming requests, and instead of seeing all of these themselves, part of them are automated because they are validated automatically in the system, right? Because you have their identities system. But again, for new ones, you can either kind of do a manual inspection. In this case, I can say, okay, I want to reject this because this person is not in our system. This is not a valid request, right? Something like that. So what's behind the curtain is workflow, right? Is a flow in Power Automate, which whenever a new row is created for a change, it downloads that image, right? It then runs that image through. So these are AI Builder connectors over here, for example, okay? And what we have picked is the identity model from AI Builder, right? We talked about various models present in AI Builder, and this is an example of an identity model. So we picked the identity model, we gave the body of that extracted text to the identity model, right? And then were able to validate, or we gave the image to the identity model, and model gave us all the elements like first name, last name, date of birth, and address, so on and so forth, right? You can then match it again with, in this case, we have matched it in a data verse table. Does this customer exist? And if they exist, we have then done a conditional approval or the rejection, or send it to my manual inspection, for example, if you want to, in the previous case that we did. Okay. With that, I also want to come to quickly AI Builder, right, and give people a sense of where they can find AI Builder and what they can do with it, right? So for example, if you go to make.powerautomate.com or make.powerapps.com, right, you will see a familiar experience, right? Both have a very familiar experience here. So in this case, you will see on the left pane, you'll see something called AI Builder, right? You'll also see data connector. So that's your Dataverse or data, which is the Dataverse layer we talked about. And then you will see your own flows and things like that. Within AI Builder, if you click Explore, Explore takes you to an experience where you can, again, just see all the models that are available, and you can choose a few to experiment with. So as soon as this kind of loads, you'll see that. So while this is loading, let's take a look at another example that I wanted to showcase, right? So for example, if you've created an expense tool, we talked about receipt processing, right? If you want to create an expense tool, right, we can embed in a Power Apps, and I'll show you an existing model around receipt processing, and that can start to process some of your receipts. So for example, if I bring in, this is something that I scanned myself, I bought something and I scan that receipt here. It'll take some while to process all the information and highlight things on the receipt that it wants to grab, or it has been trained to identify. And you can then easily see it is extracting merchant name, transaction, total, and then once submitted, it can automatically go to a SharePoint wherever you're capturing your processed receipts and things like, or expenses, right? So it can, like for example, in this case, it came into the SharePoint, and you can imagine an approval workflow where somebody can sit down and approve things, or again, you want to automate it as well. If the receipt is below a number, you automatically approve that approval. So that's doable. How do we build this model or this application? Is very simple UI here. We have embedded a receipt processing model, right? That you might have experienced in AI Builder. You brought it into your Power App. What this does is it grabs, it asks you to upload an image, and when you've uploaded an image, it runs the model behind the curtain, extracts all the information. You can take that information and submit it into a SharePoint, right? So in the detail screen, we're doing exactly that. We have a form which kind of populates all the information that was extracted by the model in the previous screen. And when you submit it, it submits it to a SharePoint, right? So no fancy stuff here. All the logic is in the previous screen where the model is grabbing the image and running the AI model on top of it and extracting all the information, and the information can then be transported anywhere or captured anywhere. And so that's that thing. Let's see if this is not refreshing. Okay, I just, oops, I refreshed it again. Well, hopefully it'll load faster this time. Okay, while it's doing its thing, let's go to another example. So this, imagine this as your invoice processing thing, right? So anytime a new invoice comes, let's say you have an automated flow which drops that invoice from an email, if your invoices are coming through emails, into a SharePoint, for example, right? So in this scenario, imagine that we have a SharePoint where new invoices get uploaded, and for simplicity, I'm going to upload an invoice myself, but you can imagine it is coming from some kind of process, automated process. Right? So let's pick Tailspin, right? As soon as we upload, the invoice will light up here, right? I mean, there is no UI in here. It's just an automated process. So a new invoice comes into your SharePoint. There is a Power Automate automation flow, which is kind of looking for new files that get uploaded and starts to act on it, right? So whenever that happens, we'll see there is a flow here which runs this invoice processing flow. And what it should do is it should capture and process that invoice automatically. Interesting. Let's see. If I go edit mode, so what we are doing here is when a new file is created, that's a trigger, right? We're observing that SharePoint folder. Whenever a new file gets dropped in my invoices, I will grab that new file and I pick up the identifier of that file. I send it to a custom model in this case, not a predefined model, but a custom model, which I have built based on my training data to extract the content from the body of this document, right? When it does that, I can then create an item, which is extracted invoice number, due date, things like that, and I can drop it into a SharePoint and also send an email to myself, right? So this should have run in the background. Let's see if sometimes it takes a few seconds. So yeah, you see a new entry here now. Right? It processed that invoice. It picked up, again, various pieces of information and kind of created almost a tabular data. So we came from a picture or PDF uploaded here to pieces of information extracted, nicely arranged in a tabular format. And again, you can do whatever processing you want to do next with it. But also in the flow you saw, after we have created the new SharePoint entry, we also send a mail to ourselves and say, hey, a new kind of invoice was processed, so you can notify people who are in charge of, let's say, invoice processing department or whatever, right? So that's that. Let's come back to the Explore experience. So this is the Explore experience. You'll see all the models here. You can also kind of quickly play around with it. So for example, this is a sentiment analysis model. It's a predefined model. You don't have to train it. Right now we're picking, again, in the test experience, you can use any sample text, or you can kind of put a text of your own. You hit analyze, it will show you the confidence score and the sentiment in the background, right? You can pick different languages and try the same experience. Right? So this is kind of a try experience for any given model. Once you feel that this is exactly what you want, you can then click use in flow, which will take you to the Power Automate workflow, where you can embed this model in a workflow, or you can then use it in an application. It can be part of one of the applications that you're trying to build, right? So you can see a very consistent experience across the board here. Again, you can also classify and filter down all the models based on either their document models or text models, structured data and images and whatnot, right? I wanted to quickly show, let me see how much time we have. I wanted to show the training experience, but let's see if we have more questions that we should answer. Can you pick a few more questions? And if time permits, we can show a few more things.
Yeah, sure, Ashish. I will be reading more questions that we have. So we have one question. So this is a follow-up question from Geoffrey, which he asks about capacity. Please define capacity in your licensing model based on capacity packs.
Okay, Jeffrey, is this a suggestion for something that we should clarify on the rate card? Or you're just asking us to define what is capacity? Or
Yeah,
that,
right.
right? So again, just clarify that. I'm happy to answer that. Next question.
So next question is, can AI Builder be used to write different types of grants?
I'm trying to understand what do you mean by grants here. If it is about creating new content, Kim, again, please define what you mean by grants a little bit more so that I can understand where you're coming from.
Okay, sure. So we'll wait for Kim to elaborate more. Then we have another question from Vic.
Okay.
Novoslavsky. Can you use apps to create data reduction in a data pipeline? Brackets. Reduce the amount of data in the pipeline brought into the data lake. Example, the data lies in a SAS provider in a different cloud. My data analytics is in a different cloud.
So
this is from Vic.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand this from an AI perspective. Vic, you're trying to reduce the amount of data in the pipeline brought into the data lake. Data lives in SaaS provider in a different cloud, and my data analytics in a different cloud. Are you trying to use any AI capability to do that data reduction or processing of the data? In that scenario, right? Again, AI Builder might or might not be a good fit because if it is textual data documents, right, then sure, makes sense, right? You can bring in raw data and you could process, and you're reducing the amount of data that you're working with. But if it is purely about just data processing, data pipelining, then I don't know if AI Builder is a good fit because most of our capabilities are around document processing, text processing, and even the structured data processing is around forecasting, and decisions and things like that. So not a data processing pipeline kind of scenario that we tackle at the moment.
Okay, again, thanks, Ashish. There's another question from Julian. It tells me a premium account is required. Is there a free tier?
Yeah, so Julian, there is definitely a free tier. There is a trial for AI Builder that you can begin with that kind of gives you some free credits to work with. Also, if you have Power Automate or Power Apps access, Then we have seeded AI Builder credits in Power Automate and Power Apps as well. So again, that gives you another opportunity to experiment and play around with AI models in AI Builder.
All right, thanks, Ashish, again. And another question is from Jeff Smith. What is the entire suite of tools called, and are there certifications offered? I know of Azure certification, but any others?
I'm sure there are some certification of Power Platform overall, right? How to work with Power Platform. So you should refer to those. For AI Builder, I don't think that we have a certification. We're trying to keep the tool as simple as possible for citizen makers and enterprise developers to be able to use and leverage it, right? So we're keeping the interactions as simple as possible. But I'm sure there are Power Platform certifications that you can kind of do and learn how to get more out of these tools, let's say.
Okay, so there's another comment actually, Ashish, from Jeff Smith. The rate card is confusing.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. Rate card is confusing. I don't think our rate card is updated with the latest changes yet. But Jeff, feel free to drop me an email with the question that you might have, and I'm happy to answer it offline. Let me drop my email to folks here as well.
Thanks again, Ashish. There are other questions then. So the other question is from Nishant, and I'm sorry about I have hiccups right now. So how are we validating accuracy for pre-trained model, especially sentiment analysis?
Yeah, Nishan, so again, good question. But the pre-trained model on our side is again similar model that you would see otherwise in cognitive services. So it's just pre-trained on a large amount of data. What the model does is when it spits out its prediction, it also spits out a confidence score. So it's that gives you a sense of how confident the model was about a given text, right? And how it is classifying the sentiment of it. So that's that. If you're really thinking about what is the accuracy of the model behind all of this, that is something that's not exposed today externally. But I'll be curious to look into some of the cognitive services documentation, see if they mention that. I don't believe they would, but again, that's one place to look into. But again, if you have more specific questions around them, I'm happy to redirect your question to one of the product teams which deals with that specific model. Okay, we're almost at time. Dipti, any final questions that we should address?
There's just one last question from Jim Mullins. How do you sign up for the trial, and is it being in a school or have employer?
Yeah, so the start of a good question, Jim. At the start, I dropped in a link for Try AI Builder. Please click that and see if kind of that answers your question. Otherwise, please feel free to send a note to me, and I'll be happy to bring you on board and have you experiment with AI Builder and other power tools that it works with.